Movers, we are back here again. I'm with Kim Hogarth, your Move Daily Nutrition Coach, and we are here to answer your questions again. But I wanted to start with a story, Kim, of my vacation last week. This is a crazy one, something that definitely made my heart beat a little bit faster. So I thought I would share it with our audience because it might be relevant to some of the Q&A that we are going to dive into here today. So, as some of you know, and maybe you've followed my social media, then you might have known that I took a vacation with some girlfriends about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. And we had a fabulous time. It's off season down in Mexico. So we went down there beginning of October, and it's so humid. Like you walk outside, everything is dripping wet. And my hair was just like a big frizz ball the whole time. But regardless, it was such a great time. So we stayed at this place that is pretty new, and it's a VRBO or like an Airbnb sort of thing. And so it's not an all-inclusive. So there was barely anyone there. We literally had the whole place to ourselves. I can maybe count on two hands the amount of people that we saw there. It was crazy. It was like we had all the staff and then just us. So we got like it was like spoiled. It was a good opportunity to get away, aside from the hurricane that was there and the humidity. But so one night we go up to this rooftop pool, which they had there, which was unbelievable. It was warm, like a hot tub warm. We got in there, we're swimming around. It's overlooking the ocean. Like it's everything, right? Just put yourself in this spot and just imagine how lovely it felt. And I haven't seen these girlfriends for years, probably 15 years since we did a little vacation together. So we were catching up, we were singing, we were dancing, we were having like Olympic pool games across the pool, racing. It was like one of the best nights. All of us agreed that it was like 10 out of 10. Couldn't top it. We weren't even going to go up there at night. I think it was like 9:30 at night. We're like, let's go up to the pool top. Why not? And no one was up there. We had the whole place to ourselves. So we have an amazing night. And we get in the elevator to go down. My girlfriend presses the button down to our floor because we're on the 10th floor and we were staying on the first floor. So she presses the button, we start to descend, and the elevator is not air conditioned. So once you get in there, it is hot, 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 right? Like it's humid, it's hot, and you're like kind of doing some deep breathing, knowing you're going to get to the first floor shortly, unless you don't. So she presses the button down, and all of a sudden it starts to go down, and then it jogs, and then it stops. And we're all like, what the heck just happened? And so instantly, right, you just start panicking. Like we're stuck. We're stuck in here. And by the way, no one's out there because we're here by ourselves. So my friend Lori's like, okay, don't panic. And she starts to press the call button. Again, no one's in the hotel right now. Like all the staff have left. Like, so we're like, oh my goodness. We're all in like bathing suits. No one has water. No one has their phone because we just traipsed up there in our bikinis and just, anyway. So she presses the call button, call, 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 and it's buzzing and no one's answering. And we're like, oh, like panic starts to set in from like getting stuck in this elevator. And then all of a sudden, the elevator turned on and it jumped down to the 8th floor. And we're like, please, doors open, please, doors open. We're waiting there, and they finally open. We're like, oh my gosh. So we get out and we're like, we are not taking the elevator anymore. And we're like, head down the stairs. The stairs were a bit tricky because it basically had to go around the whole floor and then down a flight, around the whole floor and then down a flight. We didn't care. We're like, we are not getting back on that elevator. And when, the next morning they're like closed for repairs. And we're like, yeah, no kidding. Anyway, I tell that story because I was thinking about like how it is to get stuck. It's not comfortable. It's not fun. You don't know when you're going to get unstuck. And I sort of want to parallel that to how we are sometimes in our fitness, our wellness, our nutrition. We find moments where we can really get stuck in our routines, right? We're maybe bored of what we're doing. Maybe we don't have the knowledge to move forward. Maybe life circumstances have happened around us and we just don't feel like we can move forward. And so we get stuck. But I want you to also take from this metaphor what we did to continue to move daily, right? To continue that forward movement, that forward momentum. We got out when we could and we continued moving. Even if it wasn't on the elevator, we continued walking down the stairs. And and that is the thing about movement forward in our fitness, wellness, and nutrition is that sometimes it's not going to look like a full-on sprint and moving forward at the pace that we really want to. Sometimes we're going to be just literally dripping water on the stone, one drip at a time, one positive movement at a time, one forward movement. And it may not look like we want it to, but we're still moving forward. And I think that's an important point to make. What are your thoughts on that, Kim?
But yes, I think it's a really pertinent point to many of us, especially, and I know we're going to come to the questions, but for those movers who perhaps have been doing this for a long time and it really is part of their everyday life. And sometimes it feels like we've been doing it so long, we kind of get almost too used to it and you feel like you don't have a direction anymore. You don't really have so much of a purpose. You do feel really stuck. And that can be very unsettling, especially I think at the age we are, whereby you kind of feel like you should know what you're doing. You feel like you should have that capability. And then when we do feel stuck, it can be really, really, really unsettling, I think.
Yes, I totally agree. All right. Well, let's jump into some questions from our movers. Kim, what do you have for us today?
Fantastic. Well, we've got some amazing questions there. I'm very excited to bring these to the table. Thank you again to our Hustle community for providing these for us. So question number 1. I would like to discuss how to get that spark back in getting excited about working out, health and fitness in general. I still do all the things, but after a few years, I was so excited and passionate. Now I just make myself walk, run, and strength train because I know it makes me feel good. But I want it to be fun again. Any tips would be much appreciated.
What are your thoughts, Kim?
Well, I think it's really, again, it's a super interesting question. And I think that it's okay to feel like this. I think that's the first thing, is that for sure, we know that we should be doing all these things for our health, but sometimes 100% we just get a bit fatigued with the whole thing, especially if we are just maybe doing the same thing day in, day out with our exercise and movement. It can become a bit boring. I think that's very fair to say. So first thing I would say is don't be too hard on yourself. You're clearly doing lots of right things, and that's amazing. And it's okay to feel like it's a bit samey. I think that's absolutely fine. I would encourage you to set a completely new goal. Now, whether this new goal is in your health and fitness, great. But it can also not be. Maybe you need some excitement in some other areas of your life or some passion or drive there. And maybe that is perhaps what you need just to give yourself a bit more of a buzz. It doesn't necessarily have to be in health and fitness, but it could be something like a new strength goal, perhaps. Maybe start tracking what you're lifting. So many of our women don't do that. And I know, Tracy, you really encourage them to track what they're lifting and to see that progress. Perhaps if you're not doing that, that could be a great goal to have. And it gives you more of a purpose. I think sometimes we lack our purpose. And when we lose that, it can be hard to be motivated and find that fun.
You know, in that book, Younger Next Year, they talk about the kedging trick. And I've used this as an illustration before in our 30 solid challenges, which, by the way, one is coming up November 1st. And if you haven't registered, do so. There's links in the description below here. But he talks about the kedging trick. So he talks about a group of sailors being out on the ocean. And sometimes, you know, they're very busy when the waves are, when the wind is blowing, right? Their ship is moving, they're sailing, and they've got lots to do. But when the winds die down and all of a sudden there's nothing to do, they use what's called a kedging trick to enable the sailors to have something to do, I guess, and not to become so bored. So what they do is they send a little boat out. So maybe they're a ways from the shore and they can't get to the shore because there's no wind. They send a little boat out. That boat drops the anchor. Then all the sailors pull the bigger boat, the ship, toward the small boat, and they continue to do that. So it's like they have something to do, right? They've got a new plan to move forward towards the shore so they can get off and take a break. So I think exactly what you said too is finding something new to do. Like give yourself a dangling carrot. Right. One of the things that I've taken up recently is pickleball. And not only is that a great hand-eye coordination sport, a lot of people in the blue zones do tennis sports or racket sports, which is great for longevity because of that hand-eye coordination and the agility required to move side to side, front and back. But aside from that, it's so fun. So doing something that's fun, that lights you up, that might not be your structured workouts, and maybe you shift that, right? Maybe your structured 5-day a week workout becomes 3 days a week of the strength training, because we don't want to negate that. We still want that for our longevity and well-being and muscle strength and all of that. But now you introduce something that's a little bit more fun as well. And there's lots of sports that you can do. I think sometimes I am in the same boat, folks. Working downstairs in my basement by myself can be boring, and it sometimes doesn't light me up. I do it because I think of my future self and what I want her to look like and be like. But it's also hard to rally and to motivate myself sometimes. So having something, that is fun, that lights me up, that's engaging, that is community oriented, can help us move through that season. It can be our own little kedging trick where we are pulling ourselves and now, out of a place of being stuck to being unstuck. So, and again, with the elevator metaphor, right? Doing something, moving forward, and maintaining that momentum, I think, is key. But also really thinking about that future self. Every day I wake up, I think, like, what do I want to be able to do when I'm in my 80s, 90s, and beyond? So something fun and new can motivate me, but also remembering that future self is crucial, because she motivates me big time. When I think, oh, I don't feel like doing this today. I don't want to go for my walk. I don't want to do my workout. What would my future self want me to have done? Right. And if I continue to stack up days where I'm not doing the thing that I know that I should do, that is not going to lead me toward that future self that I want. So I have to do it sometimes, whether I feel motivated or not. That's where I rely on structure, and I rely on this knowledge that if I do what I say I want to do and I'm going to do, it will get me to a place where I want to be in the future. And to me, that is really powerful, and I think really important as well.
Yeah, I completely agree, Tracy. And I think also that's a great one to pull you through on the days when perhaps you don't feel as motivated. Sometimes we just don't really want to, and that's very human of us, and that's absolutely fine. But then having a reason to do it that is beyond that is amazing. And also think I just want to draw on what you said about pickleball, because that lends itself into working out or doing activity with others. And I think if you are, quote unquote, a little bit bored with your own routine, do something with a friend. Maybe shift around your schedule, go for a walk, go for a hike, play pickleball, or even just get someone to come over and do one of your workouts together. I know on your Delhi Hustle group, we have some ladies who always do your workouts together, and they post together, and it's great. And you can just, that motivation is amazing. So shift it up a bit by doing something with someone else. And maybe that can be another way to just reignite that passion.
Great advice. All right, what's next?
Okay, excellent. Next question. So a bit of a switch now into nutrition. Carbs. Is there a point in which minimizing carbs becomes counter to health goals? For example, cause a significant enough dip in energy levels that we may not be able to work out as effective? Great question. I love this one.
Yeah, that is a good question. I mean, how much have we heard carbs being vilified, right? Like, no carbs, carb free, low carb. I love me some carbs. I love me some carbs because they definitely are that good energy source. Likewise, they do carry a higher amount of calories. So if you're in a fat loss phase and you're trying to reduce your overall calorie intake, minimizing carbs or reducing them slightly can help keep you in that lower calorie amount in order to lose weight or lose body fat. But they're definitely not the enemy. And I think keeping that at the forefront of your mind is really important. What are your thoughts on a low carb diet or how important carbs are?
Yeah, so I think carbohydrates do have a really bad rap, as you've said, Tracy, and it's kind of quite hard for us in our current season to get past that. It's one of the first things we think about when it comes to carbohydrates. But they are our body's most favorable source of energy. And I try to think of carbs as fuel now. I think of them as fuel on my fire to help keep me going. I try not to think of them as a negative macronutrient, a negative food source. And I very much think that, yes, low carbohydrate can work for some people. And this is where nutrition is so individual. I think it's really important to remember that for some people, they love carbs and they really feel energized with them. And some people actually feel more energized without them. Both are absolutely fine. It doesn't really matter sticking to a particular number. It's what works for you personally. I think just leaning into the question the person's asked more specifically around energy levels, I think it's also important to remember that you can tailor your carbohydrates every single day differently. So me, for example, if I've had a heavy lifting day, I will absolutely need more carbs on that day because it's helping me to replace that muscle glycogen that I've naturally lost through working out, exactly how my body is supposed to function. I need those carbs. I feel like they're doing good. They aid my recovery. But on days maybe when all I'm doing is some active rest or I'm walking, then maybe I will have less carbs. I just don't feel like I need it. They are both absolutely fine. And I think flexing our macronutrients around how we feel on the day really matters because that's how we get longevity out of our eating approach. But I definitely think for some people, carbs can be too low, but also they can't for others. So as I said already, just think about it on an individual basis. What works for you? There is no wrong answer, I think, in this question. But I think thinking about it flexibly and adapting to yourself is really important for using them in the best possible way.
Also, if you are reducing carbs quite substantially or eliminating carbs, you're missing out on a whole host of other micronutrients, fiber predominantly, that could be, no, not even could be, that are so crucial to your whole well-being. So, we see that often as people will go into just protein and fat. There are, of course, carnivore or keto diets that focus on those macronutrients with the elimination of carbs or the reduction of carbs. And yeah, you're missing out on fiber, which is one of those micronutrients that can improve our gut health, that are so beneficial to help keep us fuller longer, that help digestion and, our bowel movements, keep us regular. Very, very important nutrient there that we should not eliminate from our diet. Although I hear people doing that all of the time. We listen to enough researchers and scientists. I'm thinking Dr. Emily Leeming, who does so much great work on getting in all of the fiber types and how important that is for your overall health. And I am a huge fiber fan right now. Again, in our 30 Solid Challenge, one of the things that we're tracking is fiber because most of us don't get enough, right? Most of us are deficient in fiber and or protein as well. So those are the two nutrients that we're like, okay, let's track this for a month and actually see how much we're getting in. Because if you're just guessing, chances are you are not getting enough in. So yeah, I can look at some people's plates and just, guess and think, okay, just from the look of that, I know that there's not much protein there and there's very little fiber there. But again, guessing isn't being accurate. So tracking in an app, something like Chronometer or MyFitnessPal, there's free versions of those. You can really get a good sense of where your protein's at, where your fiber's at. And you don't have to track forever. A good, 2 to 4 week period will give you a really good idea of where your daily diet is at and what you need to tweak.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, one of the things we're doing in 30 Solid, as you know, is we are really helping our members and participants understand where sources of protein and fiber actually sit. Because there's so many assumptions out there. I would think peanut butter is the best one. People assume there's loads of protein in peanut butter, but there kind of really isn't for the volume you have to eat, the calories. But protein and fiber can be found in many foods that you wouldn't necessarily expect in food combinations. And through something like 30 Solids, we're able to really provide that. So in other words, if you're struggling with getting enough protein or probably more fiber, and because again, you're really struggling with that without being too starchy on the carbohydrates, we can really help in 30 Solid to do that. And likewise in the membership as well. Because there's so many things like, I know raspberries are the one we always mention is the raspberries. So much fiber in raspberries with very little calories and maximum nutrients. Also, they taste amazing. So it's kind of tricks like this about understanding where fiber can come from and likewise protein and making them part of your everyday life. It is much easier than people think. But this is where we can help them provide the education and support and how to get it in. Super. Okay, right. We're going to carry on to our final question, Tracy. Very good one. So this touches a little bit on your original story as well, with regards to motivation. So this lady says, currently I'm struggling. I'm a lifelong workout person and 48 years of age. In the past, I've taken a few days off or just pushed through, but neither of those are working. It's all in my mind, but I've been very sore, dealing with aches and pains over the last few months. I've been getting therapy for these and I'm doing a lot better, but I'm finding motivation to work out so much harder than usual. Can you help?
She's sore. She's got delayed onset of muscle soreness. And now every time she wakes up, she's like, that hurts. No, thank you. Um, I hate to say that that's what happens as you age for a lot of people, but I mean, I wake up in the morning too, and I'm like, a little niggling pain there, a little tweak here. So I think overall, as you age, that can increase. I guess it doesn't have to for everyone, but know that you're likely not alone, right? It can definitely increase. Sometimes I think what we do is we go balls to the wall. We do everything we can. Maybe we started a new program. Maybe we're like, that's it. I'm getting fit. I'm going to do it. And we start with something that's too strenuous. We lift too heavy for where we're at. We don't lift frequent enough. So we do one really hard day, like on a Saturday. We're going to just go, do everything. And then you can't walk, you can't move, you can't blow dry your hair for 3-4 days after. So you haven't won because now there's no volume, which is the driver of hypertrophy, right? So thinking about that time when you show up and really thinking about, okay, I'm going to start light and work my way up, right? It doesn't have to be a hard, strenuous workout every single time. And I think that's where sometimes people just bite off more than they could chew, and then they can't show up again the next day. And then they lose motivation because they're sore. They don't feel like doing anything because they don't want to add on top of that soreness. And so then it just becomes a spiral where they're not doing anything. I love the mindset, the adage is that you can almost always do something, right? So if we take that concept that we're going to start light and work our way up, and we do an upper body workout, then the next day we can switch muscle groups and do a lower body workout. Or, if we do lower body and then our legs are sore, or a full body, we can move then into a walking day or an active rest day or recovery day. So, having the right plan, I think, is really important moving forward for this person, because then you have something to follow. Actually, I had Dr. Lynette on the podcast not too long ago, and one of the things that she said that transformed her lifting was having a program to follow, because then you know what you're doing the next day. Then you're motivated to show up and continue the progress through a structured program. I think there's big value in that. Sometimes we'll just show up. We don't know what we're doing again tomorrow. We don't know what we're doing the rest of the week. So we just kind of wing it. We flip through YouTube and pick and choose. And that can be unmotivating, because what are you working towards, right? Do you have a goal? Do you have a target? And I think choosing a goal and target can keep you on track, right? It can be really motivating because you're building on the last day. And oftentimes you're going to see those gains week over week. And that builds self-efficacy, which is a great predictor of exercise adherence. When we believe that change is possible, we're more likely to stick with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And as many of our members and users know, Tracy and Stratton have literally stacks of programs available in a huge range of budgets. So I'd most definitely encourage everybody to look at the website if you are looking for a program to follow. And of course, in our membership, Tracy self creates all of the programs as well of different levels too. So that's something to look at if you are in search of that kind of structure. But I would like to touch on two things I'm kind of reading into a little bit in this person's question. So firstly, 48 is prime territory for perimenopause. So it could be that is coming in, and maybe there are some symptoms there, and perhaps that's to be considered with regards to how you're feeling. We do know that women can become more prone to injury with the hormone shifting. So perhaps that's something to be aware of as well. And also I do perhaps see a little bit, dare I say it, of myself in here with regards to overtraining. It feels like this person is pushing through, they're keeping going, they probably don't ever want to not do a workout. Now, that is a very hard place to be and to come out of. So I think if this is you, give yourself some grace around your ability to make those changes and give yourself time to do so. But I think it's really vital to remember that recovery is as important as the exercise itself. And so try to think of your body as needing both to be able to function really fully and be able to put the most into your workouts. And maybe think about perhaps swapping out one workout day for active rest, or a walk, or a hike, or whatever it may be, just to do something a little bit different and give your body that rest. I know personally how hard it is to break that pattern. You really feel like you're letting yourself down. You feel like maybe if this person happens to have any body weight issues, they might feel like if they don't work out, they're going to wake up 10 pounds heavier. It's very hard mentally to come out of that place. But if this is where you are, definitely think about getting some support or potentially just making some very small changes that might help you to get yourself out of the cycle of recovery. But it's a tricky place to be. And in the end, you're doing lots of right things, which is so admirable. It's just about being kind to yourself in the process as well.
Some really great points there. This is why I love doing these little talks with you, because I come up with some ideas, you come up with some, and then together that makes the best answer there. I'm like, yes. Kim touched on, those hormone impacts, right? So lack of estrogen in perimenopause, and then of course in menopause, it's gone. But that can lead to things like that musculoskeletal syndrome of menopause, where we're suffering from things like frozen shoulder, plantar fasciitis, knee and joint, ligament issues. So that can come into play huge, right? Now it's like, everything hurts. I don't want to do anything. But movement, we know, is better than no movement. So finding help that is available, doing those small little physiotherapy exercises that we put off. And I have done that myself. I go to a physiotherapist, they give me exercises. I'm like, neat, that sounds like fun and boring. So I'm like, I don't want to do it. But I look at Quentin, and he's so diligent about doing physio exercises. Like he'll spend 25 minutes in the gym in the morning doing all his physio. I'm like, wow, you are committed, and it works. So I'm like, good for you. But yeah, so it could be finding out, about your hormone health and ensuring that you're, taking care of that. And it could mean menopause hormone therapy or hormone therapy if you're premenopause, and getting that taken care of, or at least having that conversation with your physician. Kim, thanks again for your insight today. That was a great little conversation. I hope you listeners today have enjoyed this episode. And if you enjoy episodes like this, these Q&A, be sure to reach out to us. There's comment sections below. Feel free to ask your questions there. We can put them into the next Q&A. Kim also mentioned earlier our Move Daily Hustle public Facebook group. Kim runs that group. It's wonderful. She is constantly putting on little challenges, inspiring the women into conversation. And it's a place that you can be a part of people like us who do things like this, right? Moving daily in our fitness, wellness, and nutrition, and having that camaraderie and support of each other. So again, links are in the show notes, but you can go onto Facebook and just type in Move Daily Hustle, and you'll find us over there. Kim, thanks for joining me today. Now to all of you, as always, go move daily in your fitness, your wellness, your nutrition. We'll see you all in the next Move Daily Talks. And don't forget, our 30 Solid Challenge starts November 1st to November 30th. All women are welcome. You can click or tap the links in the show notes and join us and register today.